Welcome, divas and dudes, to Powerhouse Bakery. So good to have you here. We are in what I think is a pretty fun topic. We're looking at tools of the trade, or gadgets that work. The goal is to, of course, make the home cook's job easier, but also to make sure that we've got all of the great rationale, the great qualities to have healthy food ready to go. And so today we're going to talk about the all-important zesters and the juicers. So I don't know if I gave you a little prelude last time we chatted, but when I went to my trip in Santa Fe and I was in that beautiful kitchen, we also went to a farmer's market, and they had great artists there. And one of the things I picked up was this beautiful juicer. I was so enamored with it. It's got great weight. I could imagine when I was using it, it would really hold up nicely to the work of, squeezing out the citrus. And so I want to share with you kind of what ended up not being so good about it, but still having other good qualities. And in the earlier class, some of the other ladies mentioned that they had their mom's juicer, and there was one made of glass. And I thought, well, that's another great idea, again, because of the weight. The one that I grew up using, my mom's, was a really lightweight, almost plastic. And that's what really drew me to this one, is I like the sturdiness. When you're working a lemon or an orange, you don't want it to bounce around. You want it to be easy to work. Now this orange, gosh, is not very pretty. But, you really get a good, stable surface when you're working it. Now, something else I found is that even using this, I still went kind of back to my old favorites. And so as you look at the design, what comes to mind? What do you see that pops out?
It's not as slender up at the top.
Yes, it's very wide, which I didn't notice when I bought it from the cute artist, and I couldn't wait to use it. And then I'm making the crisp, and I'm like, no, where's my good tool? Because when you use this one, you can really ram it in, hence its name, ram it into the corners and get all that fabulous juice from every nook and cranny of that orange. So even if it's not that great of an orange like this little guy, you can still get a good amount of juice from it. So, the goal of having kitchen tools is truly to make your job easier. And, even though I love this little juicer, it's not as good as my favorite, both plastic, hardy, throw in the dishwasher tool, and even this great wooden one. Again, same idea. Now, I had one earlier, another rammer, that had the same shape. It was really too wide, so it works well for larger citrus. So it would be really good for grapefruit, I guess. When's the last time you made a crisp with a grapefruit? But today what we're going to do is juice lemon and orange to make a crisp. And here is the one that I made in the earlier class. And I want to show you the one that I also made in my cast iron. And so, we talked a lot about the beauty of having a skillet that is like a one-stop shop. You can do so much with it. And it turned out so nice to be able to cook in my big skillet. And how fun it would be to bring it maybe to in-laws or family for Christmas morning and get to serve it in your beautiful cast iron. You could even use the La Crusette that we talked about last time. I think that's another great option. And then it always boils down to, how do we make this citrus really come into play with the healthy aspects of, the quality. So what comes to mind when we talk about the orange and the lemon and the grapefruit? What's the vitamin that pops to your mind? Yes! So we've got these gadgets, and the whole idea is to get to vitamin C. And of course, oranges, lemons. What else gives us vitamin C? Yeah, grapefruit. So all the citrus family. Anybody know about the potato? and all the vitamin C that it provides?
A potato?
Yes, a potato is a great source of vitamin C. The white potato even more than the sweet potato. I know. So again, good reason to not forget about the humble potato, and of course the tomato, also a good source of vitamin C. And really in akin to using that cast iron skillet, one thing that I think is so cool is when we are looking for improving our vitamin C intake and improving our iron, we can do it in a double whammy by making a food that has high iron and high vitamin C. So what might we cook that gives high iron and high vitamin C, and even throwing it into our cast iron skillet? Maybe something like spinach, so dark leafies, and the vitamin C helps the absorption of the iron, so that would go beautifully in our cast iron. We could certainly make an omelet, so now you've got protein and you've got the iron from the spinach, and of course the vitamin C you could put in as your salsa or tomato. So, think about all the different ways you could use a rammer. I'm gonna have to let it dry for a second. The rammer is the one that is handheld, or of course if you wanted to do more of a juicer. In any case, we want to make sure that the gadget is helping us get ample vitamin C. So I'm also showing you orange juice concentrate, so you could sort of cheat, and if you needed to, use a pure juice in one form or another. And I do love the concentrate because it adds a lot of bang for your buck. So when I blend this one, you'll see I'll do a tablespoon of orange juice concentrate in addition to the juicing. And the other thing that's really cool is anytime you want to get juice, you also want to get zest. So I've got a couple different zesters that we're going to look at and see which one we like better. Anybody use a zester?
Yes. I just bought one with 4 set because I was using the wrong one for the rest.
Yeah, so they do have different tools. This one is very fine grade, so you'll see in a minute if we put it up against the rind of the orange, nothing comes out. It's very finely graded. So this is more for a hard cheese where you want a very light powder. This one is really my favorite for doing zest. And the other trick is that plan on replacing these probably once a year or so. They get dull. And it's so frustrating when you're working it, and it's a little bit of a workout, but you want to get all of the bang for your buck. So every time you go across your rind, you should get a nice flutter of the beautiful orange zest. And so we'll kind of play around with different qualities of these, but for sure when we're thinking about gadgets, we want to get as much vitamin C as we can. And really the showcase for today is the juicer, and then we also have the rammer, so it just rams in there and gets all the juice, and then of course the zester. So these are the tools of the trade that I think are great for getting our vitamin C. And we'll talk a little bit too about the value of vitamin C. Does anybody take a supplement? Good. I'm kind of glad, just going to say. And really it's because we're not convinced that a vitamin C supplement is really the best way to go. And so, as normal, every time I get to do a class for you guys, I learn more detail, and it's kind of a refresher too. I mean, when I studied biochemistry and vitamins, not a lot has changed, but a little bit. So anybody ever heard of Linus Pauling? Yes? No? Yes? Maria, who's Linus Pauling?
I know it's about vitamin C.
Okay, yes.
Vitamin C.
You were bluffing.
No, I didn't mean to put her on the spot. So Linus Pauling is a really famous guy in the world of vitamins because he actually won a Nobel Prize for all of his work in the science arena. Basically, he did all kinds of study on vitamin C, and his research was based on a couple of really interesting parts of history. If you've ever heard of scurvy, right? Tell me what happened with that. The sailors back in the, like, I don't know, 1500s, even as late as the 1800s, were not able to make it from one shore to the next without falling over because they ran out of oranges or lemons, and so their bones got soft. And so we found out, kind of what happens when you don't have nearly enough vitamin C. I'd love to know what they were eating, because again, tomato products would have worked, and there's actually vitamin C in quite a bit, the potato. But nonetheless, so he really looked at that history. And then it was in the 1930s that vitamin C was really discovered as a very important nutrient in the world of nutrition. And so as we learn a little more detail about vitamin C, we see that we've got a water-soluble vitamin. And what does that mean? If it's a water-soluble vitamin C, so if it's water-soluble, that means that you can't store it very well in your fat cells, or it doesn't get really packaged in the liver. So any vitamins that you know of that are not water-soluble? Well, no, it's a mineral, and it is handled a little differently because it's not thought of as a vitamin per se. A vitamin will be an enzymatic component, and iron is part of the oxygen carrying capacity of hemoglobin. But if it's not water soluble, it would be like vitamin A, D, E, K, and it actually gets packaged in the liver, and then it gets transported in the body with a fat cell or a fat molecule, which means it stays in the body longer. Water soluble is cool because it's pretty hard to get too much. Pretty hard doesn't mean not possible. And so I think maybe what happened with Linus Pauling's study, because he would say, yeah, you need like 10 times the amount of vitamin C that was determined healthy. So if we backtrack a little, here's this guy that was studying this vitamin and looking at people that had frank disease and understanding kind of where we are with the whole process, and thought, well, more must be better. And if it's water soluble, let's just give you a whole bunch of it, because what's the worst thing that could happen? You have really expensive pee because you just excrete any excess. So that's kind of true. But what we found is if you do excess vitamin C, there are some things that could happen, both short-term and a little more long-term. Short-term, diarrhea. I didn't spell that right. Whew. So easy, your body's going to say, oops, not good. Don't do whatever you just did because I'm getting rid of it. So it definitely gives you a short-term warning. Something that's a little more long-term and could still be very problematic would be things like kidney stone develop more with excess of this nutrient. So even though it's water-soluble, that's really the message I'm trying to give you here, is it could be problematic. It could also increase your risk for gout, so uric acid elevation. So yeah, I mean, I always try to think about why would we take something? What are the potential risks and what are the potential benefits? So knowing that we have some potential risks, and to put it in perspective, Linus Pauling's suggestion to get 10 times the amount of what the experts say you should get, it would be like having 25 oranges a day. You'd have so much fiber. Now, if you drank enough orange juice for 25 oranges a day, that might be going down to Smoothie King and getting the extra biggie of orange juice, So yeah, you guys are all thinking, oh, too much sugar. And so you're absolutely right. But the benefits of vitamin C are always going to be, what we're after. So what do you think are the benefits?
Immunity.
Yes, immune booster. So it's an antioxidant for sure. It also, when you think about it, it's working in a lot of beneficial components as far as what foods go with it. So if you're eating a food that is high in vitamin C, you're probably also eating a food that's high in fiber. It's going to probably have some complex carbohydrates, unless you're taking a pill. So an antioxidant is really cool. And before we go any farther, there's also a chance that if you take too much, this is really interesting to me, and this is something new for me, in excess, instead of an antioxidant, it turns into a pro-oxidant. Right? That can't be good, because we know antioxidants are good, and the opposite of that sounds just wrong, right? So an antioxidant is where you have these free radicals, little crazy little electron there that wants to, it's kind of hanging out by itself and has that charge, and it's going to bump into a cell and cause cell death, which of course is not a good thing. An antioxidant stops that, so we don't have cell death, and so the cell stays healthy. So when we bathe our cells in antioxidants, that's a good thing. Now, if you get too much vitamin C, now this turns into a bad thing. So a high concentration turns into a pro-oxidant that actually causes cell death. So it's like, holy moly, that's definitely not what we want. But again, Linus Pauling's studies were really questionable. It was difficult to have convincing evidence that we should take a large amount, and it was also not really clear that it caused, serious problems. There was just a mixed bag. And again, I think that's because vitamin C does a lot of great things, and it also potentially can be peed out. So there's so much individual differences that I feel like, there's still a lot for us to learn. Because truly, if any of you do take a supplement, you'll notice that the fat-soluble vitamins are like 1,000% RDA, 500%, right? Large amount excess. And we're kind of trained to think that, if it's water-soluble, it'll be okay. It's just extra insurance. And, of course, we want insurance. I keep having that too wet of it, but sorry. If we keep doing supplements so that we have some insurance. And that's not a bad thing. We definitely want to make sure we have plenty of vitamins, especially as an anti-cancer way of life. Sometimes we do kind of think more is better. And so on the conservative side, I always like to err, and truly using citrus in a lot of ways gets you down the right path. We don't need to get 20 oranges, but we sure can do zest and juice and lots of different things. We can add potato, we can add spinach, we can add broccoli, we can cook in an iron skillet to also augment the iron, keep the hemoglobin saturated. And so there's all these little steps that are probably more conservative and probably a little safer than trying to do a mega dose of a pill. So when we think about an antioxidant, we know that vitamin C is going to help to fight off infection. What else? Anybody think of anything? Yeah, inflammation. So one good description is when we think of the common cold and we want to take the zinc and the extra C, the whole idea there is to create the barrier of the nice rich environment of extra antioxidants to be able to make sure those cells are protected. So I think that's absolutely true. Another thing that vitamin C is really involved in is collagen formation. So collagen is in a lot of our cells, a lot of our tissues. Can you think of where collagen might be? For sure. Sorry? Skin. Yeah, skin, bone, skin, even our nerves. Skin, bone, nerves, blood. Connective tissue is really something we see everywhere. What exactly is collagen?
I just see it sold.
I know, right? It wasn't even that really known to the public until we started seeing it sold. So again, this is a great topic of why. Why did this product become really a marketable entity? You should take collagen. Why? Well, because of course you're going to want to have strong bones, nice skin, and healthy nerves. And we're always about insurance. And we learned about scurvy a long time ago which, we may or may not be aware of, but all the experts say, well, if we want to avoid scurvy and we have lots of people with money that are willing to buy insurance, let's sell them collagen. So sadly, there isn't a lot of good research that convinces me anyway that collagen is worth it. And here's the thought process. We know that our body can make it with vitamin C and amino acids. So when we look at this, what do we make it with? Amino acids and vitamin C, among other things, but this is like the main thing. Vitamin C is really important in building collagen. And it kind of goes in under these two headers because it's a really important barrier molecule, and it forms structure and function and protection for a lot of our tissues. So where do we get amino acids? From protein foods. And so protein foods like chicken, beef, fish, lentils, even potatoes again. Potatoes are so cool. I mean, they are loaded with amino acids. It's not a complete protein, but we've learned already that you don't have to have all the amino acids at once to have it really valuable. So we get plenty of amino acids plus plenty of vitamin C, and we have this great formation of a barrier of structure and function in our tissues. So pretty cool. That definitely makes me want to make sure I have enough vitamin C. We still have some equivocation around how much protein is enough. We know that with aging, it's pretty common that collagen formation decreases. Is that because we're eating less amino acids and vitamin C? Maybe, maybe not. Is it because we are not getting enough insurance? We're not using a supplement? Probably not. There's certain things that happen as we age that just start to become less important to our physiology, and so we start making less of it. And sadly, collagen is one of them. The other thing is, when we are aging, we're certainly going to be eating different foods. So we definitely want to make sure we're eating enough protein and eating enough vitamin C. But aging is one thing that's going to lower collagen. That's the one thing that we can't change. There's some things that happen that we can change. Collagen will also decrease with lack of exercise and poor sleep. So, gosh, there's some things we can't change, but there's some that we can. Exercise and sleep quality to make sure our collagen production doesn't go down. It's not really has anything to do with having a supplement on board. And I don't really want to suggest that I'm so against supplementation. What I want us to do is always be really purposeful. If we have something that we want to treat, we should, and then find the best ways to treat it. So if you have a tendency to have poor collagen, so if you have achy joints, if you know you aren't able to do these things, then we decide we're going to add more insurance. I think that's the approach that we want to take, rather than just blanketly adding it. A lot of even young fitness enthusiasts are spending a lot of money on collagen, and they're not thinking at all about how much vitamin C they're taking in, or let alone the amino acid quality. They're probably getting plenty of protein. And so I think it's a really interesting thing to decide where the tipping point is, or where am I not getting all the qualities that I need to for healthy nerves, healthy skin, healthy bones. Let's look a little bit at a healthy bone. If this is the joint and it comes together like this, we have a pretty good thick layer that protects the bone. Some of this is in fact collagen. And as we age, this starts to get thinner and thinner. And then we even have a bursa sac, and we have all these other things in the joint to help protect it. So the thought is that if you take collagen, it's going to get right into this place and improve your joint. And, a lot of people will take glucosamine and collagen to really help fix this area of the joint. And I guess my fear is that we want to get this area right in here to have more collagen. How is that going to happen if we're mixing up a powder, and maybe we're going to take a vitamin C pill also, and we're mixing up this powder and we're drinking it, and in that powder is basically amino acids and some kind of collagen mix, collagen something. A couple of ladies showed me what they consume in the morning class, and it has a collagen mix, which is amino acids mostly. But my question was, how do we ingest this product and go through our hydrochloric acid of our stomach, then go into the duodenum, and then get broken down by our digestive juices and the digestion process, get absorbed as amino acids, and then get rebuilt and brought down to this spot that is aching us, And yet some people say, I take collagen and glucosamine and it's cured my aches and pains. Well, who am I to say that didn't work, right? The placebo effect, or maybe it really is working and science just hasn't been able to prove it. I think that, again, it's something that we want to decide on. But we know for sure that vitamin C is absolutely critical in the healthy formation of collagen. It's an antioxidant. If we get too much, we'll probably pee it out. Or, again, depending on our own system, it could be as bad as developing kidney stones or increased uric acid. So what I'd like to do now is show you some of these fantastic ingredients, because it all boils down to, how do we include better foods, better ingredients, better portion size, so that we can feel confident in the insurance of our foods and not necessarily feel like we have to take a pill. And again, I don't ever want to suggest that you should not do what you have decided is good for you, because supplements are really important for folks that need a boost in certain areas. And so I would challenge you to get your labs checked, see how you are on, vitamin D. We don't really have a test for vitamin C, right? But you do have a test for your immune function. You do have a test for kidney and liver function. And so if all those parameters are doing great, it might not be necessary to add in extra insurance. So just a thought. All right, let's get started on some fun cooking. So I created this recipe that I think will be really easy to do at home. So I'm going to give you the recipe, and gosh, I'm going to walk back over here. Sorry, Ivory. The recipe for the crisp. And again, I really customized it so that you wouldn't waste anything. So first we're going to say 3 cups of oats, and it's going to be 1/3 of a cup of organic coconut sugar. And I'm putting a little plus there because, you could do a little more, but I know we're all really sugar conscious. So between 1/2 cup and 1/3 of your organic sugar. You could use organic brown sugar, or you could use the coconut. You're also going to do the juice and zest of 1 whole lemon and 1 orange. So never would I have you get the juice without also getting the zest. So super important. That's going to use our handy tools of the trade and the gadgets that I think really work. So oats, a little bit of sugar. That mixture is going to also have a little bit of fat. So today I'm doing 1 stick of vegan butter. So do you have to use vegan butter? Absolutely not. You could use regular butter. You could even use palm shortening if you wanted to. I think in a few classes ago, I talked about the value of palm shortening because it's such a clean product. It's 1 ingredient, and it's liquid at room temperature. It's very clean. It's not cheap, but it also doesn't impart much flavor. So palm shortening, I just feel like it's a really good thing for that category, when you're wanting to bake and really get a good flavor and texture profile. So how much is 1 stick? I try to use, again, home. Yeah. So 1/4 of a pound, you could say, or 1/4 of a cup. I like that because, home cooks don't usually use grams or ounces. They don't use a big amount. And so, again, with complete amounts. And I had a lady say, could I do a half a batch? And I said, no, don't do half a batch. It's too good to try to cut it in half. If you don't think you're going to eat it all, freeze it, because it freezes really well. And then, of course, the berries. And so you can use 1 pound of either blueberries or blackberries, and then a half a pound of another one. So I kind of like the second one to have seeds. So I'm going to write with seeds. So blueberries, no seeds, creamy texture, and blackberries or raspberries. Do one that's got a little texture. Another one that I sometimes do is I even add apple slices. So again, this is just a variation, which is why I'm kind of putting it off to the side. When we build it, we're going to break up the oat mixture for the crumble on the top and the crust on the bottom. If you want to put apples, put 1 thin layer on the base, and it's so good like that. But it takes a little longer to cook, and of course you get that variation of texture. So at the bakery we do both, especially if if I don't have all the fresh berries. But it's a really nice component to make sure you've got some that have a little bit of textury seeds. When I do the apples, I don't peel them. You just cut them thin, and it's really nice. It also adds a little bit of tartness. Super good variation. And so then we get our flavors. So we've got lemon and orange, lots of zest and juice that's going to be divided equally between the oats and the fruit. So every flavored layer is covered. And of course the sugar we're going to divide too. Some will go into the oats and some will go into the berries. And then we want to add some cinnamon. You could add sweet spice, which is my Powerhouse Bakery blend. Anybody remember what sweet spice is in?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, I got to get it for you then. It's cloves, cardamom, a little bit of anise, star anise, and cinnamon. And then I do put a little bit of coconut sugar in it as well, just to give it a little kick. So like if you put it on toast, for example, or you put it in your oatmeal, it has I think it's a 1:10 ratio, so a very small amount of sugar to the spices, and it's just great. So cinnamon, sweet spice, and of course Himalayan sea salt. And I think it's really important to add salt whenever you're using a grain, because it helps to balance the palate, the flavor. If you have a product that you're making and you're trying to keep it low sugar, if you add salt, your palate is much happier with lower sugar. If you leave out the salt, it's going to be flat, the flavor, and so your inclination is going to be that it needs more sweet. So in this recipe, it's very low. So I'm going to look at that ratio of all the other ingredients to a very small amount of sugar. And the best way to make that still really pop is plenty of citrus and, of course, the cinnamon and the sweet spice, but then that sea salt, don't forget it. In the sample that you had, did it taste salty? Good. So that's the idea. Kind of like when you put a little bit of salt in a cake. You don't want it to taste salty, but you notice it if it's not there. I had a customer call, and this is hilarious. He was trying to get healthy, and he admitted that he loves his pizzas, his tacos, and his beer and whiskey, but he wants to get healthy. So he said, I want you to make me salt-free bread. And it just cracked me up. It's like, wow, you're going to start with the bread to try to get healthy? And, he's like, I don't want to give up anything else. I just want to get rid of the salt in my tortillas and the bread. So he's like, so can you make them for me? And I warned him that bread without salt, it's going to taste really bad. And you don't think of bread as being salty, but it really does make a difference. Okay, so those are the ingredients. And so now let me do some mixing. So the first thing I'm going to do is mix the the dry ingredients with the butter. So 3 cups of oats. Also, the type of oats does kind of make a difference. Does anybody use the steel cut at home? Yeah. Good. There you go. That's right, Anita. And you guys that do use it, maybe you just have it for breakfast and you don't really cook with it. Is that the case? Yeah. Well, I've been really happy with the H-E-B brand. And again, you guys know I don't work for H-E-B, but I test this one pretty frequently to be gluten-free, and it always comes up gluten-free, which means that their plant is really clean, which is great. And I just love the fact that it's because it's instant or quick cook, the pieces are small. So notice that, when I kind of look through these, it's got small pieces. The thick cut oats I also use in this recipe, but it'll take a little longer to cook. It might need a little more juice, but for the most part, this is just a chopped up version of the thick cut. The steel cut would not probably work because, correct me if I'm wrong, those of you that use it, it's more of a bead. Is that true? Yeah, so the texture really changes because, see, once it's cooked, you want it to have a flaky, crumbly top. And again, I'm going to show you when I mix it in with the fat, butter, how important it is to get that nice consistency. So my 1 stick of butter, use this one. And again, I've definitely made this many times with butter. This is a family recipe, so I've been making this since my boys were before they were born, probably. And I love the fact that it's so versatile, and I want you to get to see the texture, so it's an easy one to be able to really adjust.
Butter salted?
Probably. Yeah, so yeah, it's not quite enough though, to be honest. Okay, so while we're on this, Mr. Ben, I do like this product. I do usually use the Earth Balance, but I've been pretty happy with this one. It's a fraction of the cost, and it could be that it's because it's not organic. And let's see, I don't think it had any egregious ingredients, but let's look at it real quick. Plant-based blend of palm fruit, which is, the palm oil that I really like. And it has avocado oil added. It does have salt. It has some pea protein, which is kind of interesting. And again, that's why I kind of go back to the palm shortening sometimes. If you just want a really clean product, that's great because that's one ingredient. This one has a little citric acid. It has vitamin A added, and it may contain soy as an allergen risk. But again, for this particular recipe, I think it's fantastic. Now, in the earlier class, I did this with a gloved hand, and it works really well. And so I'm going to use this whisk, and of course now I'm going to have to work it through. But that's okay. I mean, at home, I really encourage you to use your hands because you can get a feel for the batter so well. And I'm just going to work the oats into the whisk, and it takes it right out. And I could use a spoon too, but this keeps it nice and separate. I kind of want to press it all in. If I melted the butter, it would not come out the same. So don't melt it. This is room temperature, which is really perfect. And, yes, we're going to put in the rest of the wet ingredients, but I wanted you to see the texture of it when you just start out, because that's kind of the most important. So you can kind of see how all of this, the wet fat needs to get worked into the oats. Yeah, that's just about perfect. If I had melted it and put in too much of the juice all at once, it would really turn into more of a Play-Doh. And then we don't want that. We want to keep the oats kind of dry and then just encased with the fat. And that's where you get that really nice, fluffy, delicate top. And see how pretty that turned out. It's the same idea. Otherwise, it turns into kind of a one-dimensional layer that's flat. So not nearly as pretty. So now we're going to add in our zest. So we always want to make sure you zest before you juice.
Now, Suzanne, you said not to cut the recipe in half, but the aspect of it being a bottom layer and a top layer, the aspect of maybe you just, I guess this could be made for 2 sets if I only wanted 1 layer of the, on top crumble, if I left the bottom off.
Yeah, of course, for one, there's no rules that say you can't cut it. I was kind of just teasing that it's such a great product. Don't necessarily try to cut it down more. I mean, oats are loaded with protein, fiber, both soluble and insoluble. So that was all of it. But sure. And you'll see the way that we layer it. What else is going to be really important is the size of the container, meaning how thick your crust will be on the top. That'll have a big bearing on it. And, you know, I mean, you can decide how much fruit you want to put in. That'll be a variation. But what's nice is to have this product handy. I mean, this is almost good just to have as a breakfast. You could just warm this up and eat it, and you've got a perfect balance of protein, carbohydrates, and even the fats.
On the cast iron, did you put was there a bottom layer on the cast iron?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so let me show you on that too, because absolutely, I did the same scenario, and if you can kind of see, and it didn't stick at all, which I loved. And it's got about, I don't know, so I'd say maybe a half an inch of the oats on the bottom and on the top. And that was the exact ratio. So 3 cups of oats to the, 1 stick of the butter or the butter replacement. The other thing I didn't write up there, which I love to add in, is the flax seeds. So you could put it into both your top and your bottom layer. Now this is unground flaxseed. So yeah, you're not going to get all the essential fats, but you're going to get some great fiber. And of course you could grind them up too. And I'm down on I've got 2 different colors of flax. I've got the golden and the darker ones. And of course your body will get some of the fats, but just not quite as much. Okay, so I did my zest here, and I'm going to do it of the lemon. So when I was venturing out to try to help you, kind of decide between a zesting plain or the flat one, there is even a tower. I like this one best because, again, you can get right into your bowl, and one less dish to wash because you don't have to put it into a bowl and then transfer it into your product. Just zest it right in. And notice that I'm tapping it. You could tap here, but that's a lot of noise. And the way that it kind of bounces off really helps to get the zest out of the planer. And be sure that you do not zest any deeper than where the shiny oil is. Yes, that totally changes it. One of my other students made a dish like this and complained that it tasted awful. And once I figured out what she did, sure enough, she worked that so much, and it ruined the whole dish. She said her dogs liked it though. Right? Okay, so now get an idea of how much zest that ratio is. So I did the full lemon, full orange. Now I could even do that same amount, so doubling that, and add it to my fruit if I wanted to make that flavor pop and have a little more, citrus. A little bit of sour is always so good. So that's great. Now we're going to do the juicing. I am going to do a separate bowl because I noticed when I first started this, I was kind of showing you the beauty and downfall of this beautiful little guy. No spout, yeah, right. But I also, I like all the pulp. So I'm going to keep all the pulp. Now there's a little piece of stem. I don't want that. But I love having all of that in there. Now, if they could design something that would take the seeds out for me and keep the pulp, now we're talking. That would be amazing. But, really, I always have a fork handy because that's the easiest way to specifically get out a seed and leave all the beautiful pulp. So now I'm going to do my lemon, and I'll probably do at least one more of the oranges. So, again, super narrow for the smaller citrus, and look at all those seeds. So normally what I do is squeeze the juice into a different bowl so I don't have to worry about the seeds. But, some lemons are just loaded with seeds, right? There we go. So that's getting all of that really good juice out. Has anybody bought oranges lately and lemons? 80 cents per lemon. So they're like little gold nuggets, literally.
And I heard on the news about since Florida was hit, now it's citrus.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's probably why I saw them so high. Yep, okay, so I got a few more seeds. And this is the only reason why this recipe is kind of a labor of love, because you got to really work the citrus. And of course, on my table, I do have the lemon juice, but it'll never taste quite as good. I just have to be honest. If you use the jarred lemon juice, and it's pure lemon. I mean, you know, this is still a good product, 100% lemon juice, not from concentrate. There's nothing quite like when it comes right out of the fruit. And of course, I think the pulp is magical too. So I don't know, how much does that look like? We could probably measure it. So it's probably about a quarter of a cup. Yeah. Go ahead and just put it right in. So now I've let the fat and the oats kind of sit, because again, I want to make sure that they're really coated before I add in the liquid, which is the juice. So yeah, that looks great. Just enough to stick really in place, and it's going to make my perfect crust. Okay, so now I'm going to do one more, and I'm going to get my fruit. Now, the fruit I'm going to use is some fresh and some frozen. So put these off to the side. Those are my seeds. Do one more orange. So again, even when you have an orange that's not all that pretty, the better the juicer, the more effective you are at getting at all that beautiful juice. And I'm going to save this one for my fruit. So I have flavor, and really the citrus helps to pull some of the juices from the berries. So it really helps to add the juice to make it a juicy, wonderful treat and not dry. Now this one's just like it was on the past one. It has a lot of pulp in there, so I would probably leave some of that. But again, the more yummy juice, the better. This is a Caracara orange, and they've normally been really good. The navel oranges have not been good the last couple of years, so I know they're working on getting new varieties all the time, and I love the fact that we can do that in our animal and plant world. I even think this one's better. So did you notice how it grips it better? The ceramic one's nice, but because it's kind of slippery, this one grips the orange pulp and got me a little bit more out. So yeah, love that. Okay, so now we are gonna get our fruit right out of the freezer, and I'm gonna mix it for you, and then we'll divide up our 2 containers of the oats. Oh, let me see, before I do that, I do wanna show you the coconut sugar, because again, we're gonna use a small amount. So it's about a quarter of a cup in both my oat mixture and the fruits. So there we go. So that's completed now. Awesome, awesome. Okay, time for the fruit. Okay, so I've got my blackberries. And again, I like to keep them frozen so that they don't lose any of their vitamin C. Don't let them thaw. Don't let them start to bleed. You want them nice and cold. So I'm going to mix them in and add the citrus. Add a little bit of the sweet spice. If you want, you could add, you know, the coconut sugar both to your berries and your crust. Now, I've been able to find blueberries organic, but I can't always find blackberries organic. They're probably available at Sprouts. Anybody ever find blackberries? Yeah. Oh, of blackberries? Gotcha, gotcha. Well, so this is nice and cold. Obviously, I just got them out, and I'm just going to break apart the berries a little bit, and I'm going to put in my juices. So that's that little bit of orange left, and I've got my extra lemon. Take out any extra seeds, and just squeeze them right on, and that's going to be so good for creating that extra juice. I've also used honey at this stage instead of using any other sweetener. And gosh, that's so good. So 1/3 cup of honey would be plenty. And, you know, you could use it in that one as well. Absolutely fine. I see a seed I'm going to grab. Where'd my fork go? My handy fork. All right, seed is out. Okay. Now, give it a quick stir. Okay, so a little bit of sweetener. So about 1/4 cup of the coconut sugar. Just a little sprinkle, doesn't need much at all. What's nice is when you start to build it, you start to really see how thick you want your top layer and your base layer. You can just decide how much you want on each one, and sometimes even pull back some of the oats if you want to keep it even lighter. So I'm going to pull this out and put it in my serving container so I can show you how to build it right in that skillet. If you want, you could add a little bit of walnut oil. If your skillet isn't as seasoned as you want it to be, you could add a little bit of walnut oil to help it from sticking. Would work out just fine.
Remind me to add walnuts.
Yes! Oh, what a great point. You could absolutely add all kinds of nuts to this, and it would be fabulous. All right, so now I'm going to divide up my topping. So here I've got my skillet, and I'm going to put in about half. Oh, you know what? I almost forgot the salt. Maria, would you hand me that little salt over there? Thank you so much. And the cinnamon. So I use the Himalayan. You can use any salt. Thank you so much. So 1/4 teaspoon into our oats. Thank you. Exactly. And keep your salt handy, you know, a cute little container where you can pinch. I like this one because the topper is rubber, so it easily fits on and off. It won't spill, but it keeps it really handy. And then we're going to use our sweet spice. So probably cinnamon. Did I give you exact amounts? I didn't. So I'm going to recommend, if you want to write this in your notes, a teaspoon at least of the cinnamon and the sweet spice. And then you want to make sure you put some both in your oats as well as your fruit. So let me get the oats finished up here. All right, now let's put them in. So, you know, when I make these at home, I do use very little oats. I don't know why, I guess because I just like to have the fruit. But see, notice how I can really minimize the thickness. I am going to press it down a bit so you can almost see the blacks through in some spots, right? But I'm just kind of pressing it down, but it's still fairly dry. And again, I feel like this is key to make the texture really nice. If it was too wet, it would look more like a pie crust. And now when I put in my semi-frozen fruit, it's going to hold right at the top so it doesn't, again, get super dry. But it'll cook beautifully. I did the one that you're sampling like this morning, and it took about maybe 30 minutes to cook. You don't want them to overcook because you want those berries to still have lots of texture. The 350, yes ma'am. Yeah, good point. I guess I didn't write that in very well. So 350 for about 30 minutes, preheated oven. Try to put it right in the center of your oven, especially if you end up doing a layer of apple. The apple, you know, I think needs to cook a little longer. So if you put it right in the center, make sure you get good airflow so that the top doesn't burn while you're letting the center and, of course, the apples cook. Okay, and so now, see, did I forget anything? Yes, a little cinnamon. Sweet spice, also really good. That's where you get the anise and all those other flavors. If I had a little leftover citrus, I'd probably put that in there. If I had a little bit of fresh mint, I'd put that in there. I might even put a cherry here and there or fresh raspberries just to kind of add some color and pizzazz. So then when it's cooking, you see those bright colors pop up. So all really fun to do. All right, here comes the top. And notice I'm just kind of letting it fall. I don't want to make it too thick, but I also don't want to have any big chunks. I can see lots of orange zest falling in there, which I love. Yep, so there we go. That is ready for the oven. Doesn't that look so good? It's nice and full, so really hearty. Couldn't you just imagine getting to bring this to a family event and getting to enjoy a berry crisp? Loaded with vitamin C. Of course, we didn't even mention that the berries are a good source of antioxidants, so it becomes a great win-win with all the ingredients. You can put plenty of hemp seeds, chia, and flax as well into the oat mixture. You know, I put a little bit in the top, but you could put them all through it. I just didn't have them on my table, otherwise I would have. But getting a habit of using these ingredients a lot, now you just keep building your insurance with real food, and it becomes so much more enjoyable than having to pop a pill here and there. So I hope you get to enjoy your berry crisp, and thank you so much for coming to Powerhouse Bakery for another nutrition session. And so eat your vitamin C.